for tonight. Tonight, it feels like
It's Thursday, the 19th of October. It's What's Up the Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Randy Kure. Hope all is well, and thank you so much for joining us live on Twitter Spaces. Be sure to like our respective social media channels on Twitter or X, however you want to call it, Instagram, and now on Threads at What's Up Podcast. It's all about basketball this evening. Really excited to introduce tonight's roundtable. Coming off of a fantastic personal vacation in the Mediterranean Isle of Cyprus, Tony Antoniou is back in the house. Tony, I do hope that Cyprus, in fact, is in the Mediterranean. If not, please correct me. And how are you?
Right on it, surrounded by it. So you're 100% right. I'm good. How are you, Randy?
Doing great. Thank you so much. And joining me as well, basketball enthusiast, incredible insight on all sports, including basketball. Neel Katarey is here. Neel, how are you?
Pleasure, Randy. Good to be with you again, and good to see you guys.
And like he always does around this time of the year, a dear friend to What's Up the Sports Podcast. From his home in Long Island, New York, he is the owner and founder of NBA Buzz on social media. If you don't follow NBA Buzz on social media, you're not really following all things basketball. At official NBA Buzz on Instagram, Twitter, Threads. You could also find NBA Buzz on Facebook. Mikey Domagala is back in the house. Mikey, as always, it's so great to see you. How's it going?
Oh, it's great to see you, Randy. I always look forward to this time of year, getting the forecast for the season and chopping it up with you.
No, it really means a lot. And there's definitely a lot to get through with regards to the upcoming season. We're going to be talking about the new era that's about to take place in Milwaukee. Of course, Damian Lillard was traded to the Bucks, ending over a decade with the Portland Trailblazers. James Harden is continuing to do James Harden-like things. He was MIA for practice again today with the Philadelphia 76ers. We'll get some thoughts on the Toronto Raptors, who are, of course, are near and dear to the hearts of myself, Tony, and Neel. As well, we're going to have a quick chat about the likes of Kyrie Irving, Zion Williamson, and top prospect Victor Wembanyama. But, first up, Mr. Domagala, I mean, they say it's the NBA offseason and the basketball offseason, but really doesn't feel like much of an offseason, was it? I mean, there's a lot of movement in the NBA and, of course, the World Cup of basketball. I mean, it seems like deja vu. I mean, I'm certain like the last couple of times you were able to join me, you never really had much of a break, have you?
Randy, I haven't had a break in about 12, 13 years. It's been this daily going, which I'm honored to do. But no, you're right. I mean, every year is usually heating up in July with the free agency and summer league. And then it's like, okay, a nice dry spell, maybe get some things done in the summer and lay low a little bit, not work as hard. But like you said, this offseason, right to Team USA basketball, right to the James Harden saga, the Lillard saga, and all the sagas that could be. So, yeah, it's been an action-packed offseason, definitely one that's more action-packed than usual.
And one, of course, tournament team that you did bring up is USA Basketball. Of course, the World Cup of basketball took place during the summer in Philippines, Indonesia, and Japan. And Mikey, to sort of give a little bit of comparison from your country to ours. And of course, when it comes to Canada, the number one sport is hockey. And when international tournaments take place, hockey tournaments, of course, whether it be men's or women's, and Canada does not only medal, but finish with the gold. If they don't reach that, there seems to be a lot of panic, and USA did not finish with a medal at the FIBA World Cup. They've gone since 2014 without taking a medal. How disappointing is that, Mikey? I mean, the best players of USA was not there, but I could only assume that it's still a poor taste in basketball fans' mouths in your country when USA doesn't take home at least gold.
Oh, definitely. I mean, you know how Americans are, very cocky, we got the best players in the world. We got the best players of the NBA. We got everybody ready to compete. It's easy gold. But like you see, other countries, they're stepping up their game. International basketball is beefing up, and a lot of those guys could play ball, man, and they don't just play NBA ball. They play actual basketball over there overseas. So when these young guys, especially this year on Team USA, went over there, they got their butt kicked. It wasn't just you're going to run and gun all 48 minutes. You're going to chuck up threes. There were zone defenses. There were a lot of half-court sets going on, barely any fast breaks, just kind of off turnovers. Yeah, it was a reality check for us Americans. I mean, I'm not really disappointed. Personally, I really only care about the Olympics. It was fun to watch. It was fun to watch Team Canada, Germany, Latvia, all those teams kind of put up a fight, even if they were heavy underdogs against different teams. So, yeah, definitely a bad taste in the Americans' mouth. And I think they deserve to get punched in the face because they thought it would be a cakewalk, and so did every other American on NBA Buzz and in the comment section.
And you mentioned the likes of Latvia and Serbia, and of course, Latvia did not have Kristaps Porzingis. Serbia did not have Nikola Jokic. Of course, he was a busy boy winning an NBA championship with the Denver Nuggets. And Tony, because of with the Porzingises and the Jokic's, and of course, all the stars of the USA team not at the FIBA World Cup, does that take away from what Canada accomplished? It was the first time in tournament history where Canada medaled. They finished with the bronze there. However, it wasn't the world's best in terms of talent. Does that take away to some degree?
Not for me. I think they should be very proud of their accomplishment. I think first things first, based on recent history with our Canadian national basketball team, we had the faces of the team show up, and we haven't necessarily had that over the last few years. It's been one of my problems with Canada basketball, right? Like guys who aren't committing. It goes way back to Steve Nash after 2000. He was a no-show for Canada for a long time. But I think they should be proud of it. And look, I think the more they work together and the more they play games, and that core stays together, why not? Why can't they compete for a bronze, right? Like even when the field gets a little stronger. So I don't think there should be a shadow on it. They should be happy with their accomplishment.
Well, and especially with Spain not doing well in the tournament either, it was definitely a surprise to see certain teams, France, not doing overly great either. But there was Canada, and quite a bit of top level talent did play for the red and white. Neel, Mikey did mention the fact that his interest lies more so with the Olympics. And, I do find that, it goes without saying the NBA talent wants to participate in the Olympics. There was a big rejuvenation, of course, in 2008, 2012, of course, with the Redeem team. USA has just been dominant in men's basketball. Of course, women's basketball goes without saying. But with regards to the World Cup, there doesn't really seem to be a lot of desire. And can you understand why? Because, sure, the FIBA World Cup is not the FIFA World Cup, but a World Cup is still a World Cup. Neel, sorry, you're on mute.
No, you're right, Randy. It is still the World Cup, and it deserves to be prestigious, to see as a highly regarded tournament, but by no means should it be seen anywhere close to the level of the Olympics. Look, the Olympics is the most prestigious sporting tournament in the world internationally. To be called an Olympian is an honor that someone can only dream of, and that includes our NBA superstars, the guys that have reached the mountaintop. Steph Curry, for example, he cannot retire without making one Olympic gold medal, because that now is a legacy thing. The only thing he's really missing, and the history of the Olympics is unmatched, going back to, years, 200, 300 years, if not longer. Again, the thing with the Olympics versus FIBA, there's 32 teams in the World Cup. There's only 12 in the Olympics. So the competition itself is more exclusive. It's more high level. The FIBA, the fact that the World Cup is actually a qualifying tournament, as are many other tournaments for the Olympics, also just speaks to the hierarchy that the Olympics has on the mountaintop. And little known fact is that the FIBA organizers are actually big in the process of organizing the Olympic tournament as well. So they work with the IOC and the other organizers as a big part in organizing that tournament. So they have an involvement in there as well. And they even recognize that at the end of the 4-year cycle of international basketball, when you reach the mountaintop, is winning the Olympic medal. And then I think, when it comes down to the NBA, the stars of the NBA, let's go back to the dream team, man. When NBA players, Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, Barkley, all those guys, they brought the NBA, they brought basketball to a stage internationally that has never been brought by any other single tournament or championship or anything ever before. It was unbelievable. Barcelona, the place, the time of the world, everything lined up. Michael Jordan being in his prime, the way he was. David Stern is a genius for advocating for this, because it brought the NBA and it brought casual fandom to new heights when it came to basketball. And then I'd be remiss if I don't remember, and with all due respect to Mikey and all other Americans, that American hubris that we all love to see. The hubris not only of bringing a shoddy team time and time again to either the World Cup or to, let's say, the 88 Olympics, I think it was. And then the hubris of all these other NBA superstars saying, oh, the world thinks they got us, eh? Let's get it on the next tournament. And I think you got the dream team, you got the redeem team, and now you're about to get whatever happens in 2024 as a message of what happened in the World Cup for the Americans, and the world is here to watch.
That's a great statement. Really is. You're spot on.
Randy, I think you're on mute, buddy.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not really able to Google. I think they might already have a nickname for the 24 Olympic team. I don't think it's a redeem team, but anyway, I digress. Mikey, Neel and I, we were on a podcast with a couple of sportscasters from the state of Mississippi. We were talking about international basketball, and one possibility was a tournament, USA versus the world. I don't know if you remember, I did pose this question to you, but I'm of the opinion that if there was a USA versus the world best of 7 series, that the likes of Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, and those who were not, LeBron James, those who were absent from the FIBA World Cup, would be inclined to take part in this kind of tournament, USA versus the world. I apologize for putting you on the spot like this, but do you think that may happen in the future? That maybe that there is something to prove with how potentially good the world is?
I would love it. I feel like every basketball fan would love it, but I feel like an organization would have a real hard time getting all those players to understand the importance, because these players would say, well, I could play in the FIBA World Cup and do the same thing against the world, or when the Olympics come around, it'll be against the world. I know what you mean by all on one team against the USA. I think it could happen. I don't necessarily see it happening. And if you're to ask me the winner, I mean, just take a look at the last few MVPs where they're all coming from. You know what side they're coming from, the world side. So, like I said, the rest of the world is, like Steve Kerr said, it's not 1992 anymore. All these countries have evolved and taken up basketball, and their love for watching it on a nightly basis and being inspired that American NBA basketball is going beyond borders, and everybody's swallowing it up and becoming their own NBA player overseas. So I think the world would take it. I mean, who's going to stop Giannis and Jokic at the 4 and the 5?
Yeah, absolutely. And with regards to Victor Wembanyama, who we're going to be talking about in a few moments, you mentioned, of course, Giannis and Jokic winning the MVP. And is there a someone who's going to take the USA to that next level once the LeBrons and Kevin Durant's retire, along with Steph Curry and everybody else? But gentlemen, I as you all are aware, that I was in Europe for the past couple of weeks, and in Paris itself. And of course, Paris and France has an incredible sporting history. I was there during the Rugby World Cup, and it was just absolute madness. I was watching a game. I was at dinner with my wife, and the fans were going crazy, and I had no idea what was going on, but that's another story. But I have to say that with regards to Victor Wembanyama, this perceived next one, the next LeBron, the next KD, the next LeBron and KD combined, that there wasn't a lot of visibility towards Victor Wembanyama. I mean, I definitely saw the posters of Kylian Mbappe and a number of French superstars, European superstars, Lionel Messi and such. Victor Wembanyama, other than maybe a couple of clothing racks at the Nike store, didn't really see anything there. Tony, it may be a little difficult to ask you for not seeing what I saw in downtown Paris, but after hearing what I just said, that Victor Wembanyama doesn't seem to have a lot of visibility in Paris, does that surprise you at all?
I guess not. No, because it's a soccer country, and you mentioned Kylian Mbappe, and I'm sure there was a lot of attention on Ligue 1 at the time, and PSG and that league. I mean, let's put it this way: if we were walking around downtown Toronto, we'd probably see more like Leon Draisaitl stuff, and he's from Germany, than you would Andrew Wiggins, who was a first overall pick in the NBA.
Perhaps.
Right? So I guess from that aspect, I'm not surprised. I mean, if he takes off and becomes what he's supposed to be, yeah, I'm sure the attention will rise rapidly in France.
Well, and of course, because France does have a very established history with basketball, you think of the likes of Rudy Gobert, you think of Evan Fournier, and I mean, they do have a very established international history with international tournaments and so on. And Neel, I came across a podcast, and I came to realize, and it is quite evident, that people of Victor Wembanyama's physical stature do tend to have a lot of physical ailments. I mean, you think of Yao Ming off the top of your head, and he did not play 500 career NBA games. Mikey had reported on NBA Buzz that at 7'4", Victor Wembanyama is less than 230 pounds. Love to ask you, especially with your medical background and knowledge. And I mean, do you think that his size can be a concern? I mean, looking at him, I mean, he does seem like a very thin person who could get, thrown around, especially with those big bodies in the NBA.
To be honest, I think that his injury risk is the only concern with Wemby. He is a dynamo phenom that if injuries were taken out of the equation, he would almost be guaranteed to become a first ballot Hall of Famer in his career. But when it comes to the injuries, the short answer is unfortunately yes. And it's less to do, I think, with him being pushed around because he will gain an NBA body with time. It's more about his frame and his height. And, I think that just his frame in general is going to impart a higher risk of musculoskeletal injuries just at face value when you take everything else out of it. There's a number of medical conditions, and just to name a couple, things like Marfan syndrome, which tends to produce very tall, lanky type of people. Then there's things like acromegaly, which is a bone growth disorder that ends up also producing tall guys, sometimes with certain facial features and whatnot. I don't know if these guys actually had this syndrome, but I'm thinking of guys like Greg Oden, like Yao Ming you mentioned. They have a certain phenotype of their bone structure that is part of it is their height that allows them to impart a physical dominance, but it also makes them somewhat brittle in the bone structure. And so there is some of that, I think, with Wemby, but I think, when we look at like a couple of other examples in the Wemby form, let's talk about Manute Bol. Manute Bol actually played a pretty long career. He played an average of 75 games a season through his first 7 seasons in the NBA. Can you imagine even like any superstar doing that these days? The top level guys don't play 75 games a season for the first 7. That being said, he only played 22 minutes a game. Talk about Sean Bradley. The guy played 16 years in the NBA. Granted, he didn't play a heavy role like Wemby will be playing, but he played 82 games 3 times in his career, all 82, and that includes in his 14th season, averaging 22 minutes a game that season. Now, of course, those guys were asked to do paint rim protection. They didn't really go out into the perimeter. They stayed locked into their little zone. Let's talk about Kristaps Porzingis. He's had a injury-riddled career. He was supposed to be a superstar, but he's really more of a complementary high-level role player at this stage who can act like a star on some nights. And only as a 3rd or 4th star can he be on a contender, which I think is actually a perfect place for him is in Boston, because the lower level of responsibility that he'll have combined can allow them to play to his strengths, allow him to impart more of his defensive presence, and they can load manage him effectively as well. But when he was a star in Dallas, for example, he was a flop because he couldn't stand up to the physical pressures of playing that role. And then, with all of that said, Wemby is a physical freak. This guy could definitely be the exception to the rule. And I think he has a really solid chance to be a durable, available player during his career with also a number of accolades and possibly championships. And to be honest, San Antonio is probably the perfect place for him to land because they're the load management mecca. And Pop is the load management messiah. And don't get my Patrick Ewing level conspiracy theories going, but I think the NBA really wanted him in San Antonio.
Okay, very quickly. I mean, now I know that San Antonio does have the history, but if there was a team that would have made more sense in terms of economic sense, it would have been a team like Houston, because San Antonio's a smaller market, Houston's a bigger city. I mean, Mikey, again, to put you on the spot.
I think San Antonio's got the history, just like you were saying. Like, it's just a path of greatness. It's Robinson, Duncan, Kawhi Leonard in there, you could say, and Parker Ginobili, and now it's Wembanyama's turn. It's perfect. It's a perfect storyline. Pop on his way out. Now he's crawling back in. Like, that's a Godfather reference, pulling me back in. But they pulled him back in with Wembanyama. Pop said not that he was getting a little bored, but what greatest of all time coach wants to, in his last 2 years, win 25 games, 30 games, and that puts a bad taste in your mouth, and maybe I'll spend some time with my grandkids. And here's Wembanyama pulling them back in. Another storyline of greatness in the line of Victor Wembanyama, maybe for the San Antonio Spurs.
Sorry, Tony, please.
Sorry, I just wanted to add also all these guys that you just mentioned, Mikey, low key guys, right? Like just professionals, class acts. I don't know how Wemby is going to be. I'm not sure what his personality is like off the court, to be honest with you, but the guys who came through the San Antonio Spurs organization, just all quiet, unassuming superstars, just get it done. So it's going to be interesting to see how he becomes that, right?
It seems like he is that. From interviews I've seen, I remember the pre-draft, he was on the Today Show and all those, shows, and very well spoken, very humble. He had his family on, seems soft spoken, and like you said, we'll see how it is when he gets to in the NBA playing and the media's on him.
And he definitely seems very engaging and very well spoken for, especially, I mean, in the small sample size, I, for one, saw him, and especially around here in North America, that he does seem like he could carry a good conversation. And, Mikey, I get from a basketball sense and just a sports sense in general, we don't see a lot of team sports in North America where the signature face is not from the United States. Of course, for so many years, it was LeBron James and Kobe Bryant. You could from Michael Jordan to Bird and Magic, and the list goes on and on. But you had mentioned, of course, that the past couple of MVPs are not from the USA. Giannis, Nikola Jokic. Is it a matter of time before we see Luka Doncic as a consistent, top player in the league, MVP caliber? Could Victor Wembanyama do it? Could he be the face of the NBA, barring injury, of course? But would the U.S., have that admiration for somebody outside of the U.S. like they did with the players I mentioned before?
I think he can, but back to the conversation we all just had, if he's low-key and assuming, was Tim Duncan ever the face of the NBA? He very much could have been, and he very much might have been the best player in the NBA, but everybody saw Kobe Bryant as the face of the NBA. So, yes, it could have to do with him being, an international guy, but a lot of it is the personality. I look at, when I think of Wemby in that question, look how beloved Anthony Edwards is, because he's a funny guy, very personable, always making jokes to the camera that I'm posting and other platforms are always posting. So will Wemby be that guy if the stats are close in the scoring department and the playoff matchups are close? If Edwards wins one and Wemby wins one as they're both ascending, it might all come down to the personality. And if you ask Victor that, knowing how he is and his demeanor, he might not care. He might not care about being the face of the NBA, while Edwards kind of knows what he's doing, being himself. It's just different. So I think it's possible, but he needs more personality to be seen as that guy. Look at LeBron. Funny guy, always cracking jokes, and a personality himself.
Sorry, just getting myself off of mute there. And obviously, LeBron has the accolades to go with that. Guys, I just want to read a comment via Twitter Spaces from John Ball. It'll be interesting because I think they'll rely on Wemby more and his development with Jeremy Sokan as the starting point guard and not Trey Jones. And of course, with the versatility that Victor has, his ball handling skills, and doing Euro steps from the 3-point line, he definitely has what it takes. And of course, the professor to do it with Greg Popovich as head coach. Guys, from San Antonio, I'd love to take things over to the Pacific Northwest to a degree, because that's where we used to find Damian Lillard. And after 11 seasons, the Dame Lillard experience is over in Portland. He, of course, is now part of the Milwaukee Bucks. From all accounts, appeared to have been quite a messy divorce, specifically wanting a trade to the Miami Heat. Of course, that did not happen. Dame is now side by side with Giannis. Mikey, it seemed that Dame was quite a soldier for the Trailblazers, and all of a sudden he wanted out, and he only had eyes for one team, and that did seem that it was going to make trading Damian Lillard that much harder for the Trailblazers. Were you surprised at how everything played out in the end with Damon in Portland?
Oh, absolutely stunned. I thought it was only a matter of time before Miami gives in or Portland gives in, either way, of who's going to give more or who's going to agree for less, I guess you could say. So I was absolutely stunned. I was out. I was driving when that report came in, and I travel with my laptop all the time. It's in my trunk if I'm going somewhere, anywhere I am, it's with me for situations like that, because I look down, and you guys probably know this. Shams Charania, he reported that Dame got traded to the Raptors, and he immediately deleted that tweet. So when I looked down in my car, I saw a little flash notification, glanced at it very quick. I saw Dame to Toronto. I'm like, oh my God, this is unbelievable. Toronto, how's that going to work? And then I see another notification, it's Milwaukee. Milwaukee, Giannis? Who'd they give up? So I pull over, get the laptop out, and I was stunned. I thought it was almost a guarantee he was heading to Miami. But, Portland just didn't like their offer enough. And I got to respect it, because I think every team kind of got something they wanted and needed in the 3-team trade.
Totally agree.
I mean, it would have been interesting to see Dame in a Toronto Raptors uniform. But, Tony, for me personally, Damian Lillard is not superstar level. He's not superstar caliber. For me, if you're a superstar, you have won championships, you've won MVPs. Damian Lillard has done neither. And if you ask me, the superstars are LeBron, like currently LeBron, KD, Steph, Nikola Jokic, Giannis. I mean, I knowing that you follow basketball to some degree, of course, you definitely have an appreciation for ball. Is Damian Lillard a superstar in your opinion?
I think so. I think we put this emphasis on championships so much, and sometimes I think it's unfair because sometimes you're a victim of your circumstance. This is the first time Damian Lillard has left Portland in his career. There's never been a super team that he's been chasing until now. I don't know if he's a part of a super team right now, but we'll find out, right? He has a legit shot at winning a championship with one of the best players on the planet, my Greek boy, Yasu. And I think we'll find out, but I would consider him a superstar. I mean, he's been clutch. He's performed in big games for Portland, but the limitations to what was around him, I guess, should play a factor in it, right? I mean, why not? Do you not consider Charles Barkley a superstar?
Truthfully, no.
In his day?
You know what?
No?
I gotta say no. And
I think the superstar.
you think
Definitely.
Mikey,
Oh,
you're
Well, he's definitely a superstar, Randy.
That 1993 season wrapped it up.
He won an MVP and took his team single-handedly to the finals one year.
he didn't win. He didn't.
Michael Jordan dropped 55 points on his head.
Leader of the Dream Team as well.
Barkley being the leader of the Dream Team. I mean,
No,
Mikey,
Barkley-
I
He
have
was
to
the glue guy on that Dream Team, right? Like he
led them in scoring. Yeah.
and he was a glue guy there. He helped keep that thing together. There's not too many egos went astray, and I think Charles Barkley was a factor in that too, because he's that type of personality. So I don't know. I mean, everybody's got their criteria for what a superstar is, and I think we put a lot of emphasis on championships, and I think it's unfair at times because the players, like I said, sometimes, I mean, Dan Marino, he might be one of the best quarterbacks to ever play the game, doesn't have a ring, but my God, there aren't too many guys who can sling a ball like he was able to. And I'm a Bills fan. I can't stand them. However,
And you know,
However-
Joe Montana actually called him the best QB ever. And Joe Montana, to many, is considered the GOAT right after Brady.
you know, so I'd call him a superstar. I call Dame a superstar.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. You know, truthfully, with regards to Barkley, of course, you know, it's really hard to win a championship when Michael Jordan is in the same league, and you know, the 2 years that he wasn't in the league, that was the only two times, especially in that 8-year run where Chicago didn't win. Maybe it is a little unfair that I don't think Charles Barkley is a superstar, but hey, everybody has their own opinion. But you know, guys, and Neel, I'd be interesting to see how the Dame experience in Milwaukee is going to ride out here. And you have to wonder, especially with the 12 well, now this is his 12th season, like how is that ball going to be distributed between Dame, Giannis? You know, are they going to be able to mash? And in your opinion, do you think that Giannis has to adjust more, or do you think that Damian has to come up with a new game plan to fit Giannis's game?
The question of who needs to adjust more is 100% Dame. The reason is that his game is more predicated on usage than Giannis is, in my opinion. Giannis is able to get his in many, many different ways, which include off-ball and on-ball actions, primary distributor or playmaker, and off-ball. He has elite rim running capability, rebounding, defensive contributions, and he can do everything initiating an offense as well. Dame, however, is not a strong defender. He's not strong off the ball. He is predicated on usage and playmaking. He needs the ball in his hands. But with all that said, it's a win-win situation for both of these guys. Both guys are going to have a little bit less usage than they're used to. But just like Kevin Durant when he went to Golden State, both guys are going to see an uptick in their efficiency and only really a mild reduction in their stats overall. The biggest thing for Dame, his assists are probably going to stay around the same or go up a little. His scoring will probably retract back to like 26, 27 points a game rather than the 30 plus that he could average on Portland. But he doesn't really need to. They got strong scorers and contributors outside. He's going to be asked to be more of a playmaker. And let me just tell you this. Giannis is going to get so many easy buckets off of Dame collapsing defenses and pick and roll actions that he's probably going to buy Dame a villa in Santorini. And since Dame's a bachelor now, let me tell you, that's where Thanasis comes in. And to just answer one thing, when you asked the question about is Dame a superstar, 100% he's a superstar for many reasons, but probably the biggest reason, and this was a hot take, but in my opinion, he is the best closer in the NBA. He is a far better closer than Steph Curry. He is not a better player than Steph Curry. He is a better closer than Steph Curry.
Are you referring to the two closeout shots that he had against Houston and oh my God,
it's more of an indictment on Steph's ability to close than it is on Dame's. Dame is an unbelievable closer, and Steph, what he did in that game 4 in Boston last year is epic, but what he failed to do against the Raptors and what he's failed to do against the 2016 Cavs, for example, he is not really a closer at the very end of a game. Rather, he peppers you through a game with elite, legendary stuff. But Dame is a legendary closer, and I think that's exactly what Milwaukee needed.
Okay. So putting the three of you on the spot here, Dame in his prime or Steph Curry in his prime?
Steph Curry, 100%.
Yeah,
okay,
it's not even close. Actually.
Okay,
It's not close.
Because
as a closer, last shot of the game. I want Dame though.
I want Dame too. I do want Dame.
He definitely has the
clutch,
history.
the clutch. He's got the clutch gene.
Yep.
We've seen it a few times. That's why, you know, those are guys, go-to guys, game changers, finishers. It doesn't. I know what Neel's trying to say exactly. Obviously, we all think Steph is the better player. There's no question about it.
Sure.
And Randy, if I could jump in off Neel's point, you know, I remember being so frustrated watching my Knicks face prime James Harden in Houston with Clint Capella. He made Clint Capella look like freaking Wilt Chamberlain with those lobs. because Harden was so dangerous with the floater. I could see the same thing happening with Dame and Giannis. It's either Giannis is catching the lob or Dame is on this side laying it up or floating it in. So it's going to be a very dangerous pick and roll. I also see the lane opening more up for Dame. We'll see more dunks from Dame probably than we have in the last few years. So it's going to be very exciting. As I agree with everything Neel was saying.
Well, of course, the Milwaukee Bucks won their second NBA championship in 2021. Could we see them make a return now with Damian Lillard in Milwaukee? So, Mikey, you did bring up James Harden, and James Harden is always making things interesting. He's definitely providing an opportunity for you to provide some very easy content because what he is doing is just incredible. Again, he skipped out on practice today. He hasn't suited up in preseason ball. Of course, this is not the first time James Harden has rattled the cage wanting out. He wanted out of Houston. He wanted out of Brooklyn. It appears, and not so much appears, that he wants out of Philadelphia. And Tony, with everything that has gone on with James Harden, the accusations against general manager Daryl Morey, can anybody take this guy seriously?
No, I don't. Like I'm done with James Harden, but I was done when he got himself out of Brooklyn too. It's just at some point you got to wonder, is the talent worth the trouble that you're bringing on? And for me personally, if I'm running a team, I wouldn't even give him a second look. Give him credit. As far as I could see, he's not purposely getting himself fat in order to get traded like he did with the Houston Rockets. So give him a round of applause for that. But look, whether there is reason for James Harden to be upset or not, we don't know. We're not behind the scenes. Maybe Daryl Morey did steer him in a different direction and ended up, but I'm sure it was going to involve a lot of money, and a lot of money, but maybe not the years that he was promised. Perhaps. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure, Mikey, you can maybe speak to this more. What exactly would Daryl Morey have said or done to a guy that he has supported for how many years now?
Since
you know
2013.
What I mean?
Yep.
Since 2013, a guy who's made him incredibly rich. Now, I understand James Harden's talent is the reason why he's rich. However, there's a guy who vouched for him, a guy who went out and traded for him twice now. And I can't see Daryl Morey doing something so egregious that would cause James Harden to act like this. I just don't see it. I'm done with him personally. Like I said, he's not like Logan Roy says, he's not a serious person.
Mm-hmm.
I've been done with him. I agree, since Brooklyn. And what I think it is, Tony, is I think Daryl Morey, for somebody who's been around him for 10 years, had a stern conversation with him that they're not going to pay him what he wants because of his age, his play, and his ego. And I think his ego burned that bridge with him and Daryl Morey because he didn't want. He's almost living in a fantasy that he doesn't want to hear the truth that he's not the player he was. So it probably damaged his ego and really damaged his mental that he just totally wrote Daryl Morey off in his head. And to the media, putting the blame on Daryl Morey, I agree. It's James Harden. Just look at the history. Look at the history. No superstar has gotten that close to a championship with Brooklyn if they're healthy and not try again the next year. Just try to get right out of there. It's very cowardly. In my opinion, he's a top 5 shooting guard of all time, but there's a big asterisk next to his name, a very big one.
Yep.
Well, I think the possibility is that there are people out there, general managers out there, that think that they could change, whether it be James Harden or Kyrie Irving, these troublemakers and people who have not really lived up to their potential. Now, You could say, Neel, of course, that James Harden has had a very established career, but there are certain things that steer him off the path. Do you think that there's going to be another general manager out there that could see sees something that could take their team over the top? I mean, that's a huge price tag as well, 35 million.
You just said it right there. It's actually the price tag and not the player that they're not attracted to. Anyone would love to have, every single team in the NBA would love to have James Harden on a mid-level exception, for example. Something that if it didn't go the right, it's a super high reward play with relatively not as much risk. At his price, knowing what he is going to ask of you as an organization, knowing the type of egotistical hubris that he has injected into every organization, regardless of how much he's contributed to that organization. He seems to have taken his Houston clout and just applied it blindly to Philadelphia, not really realizing that he's in a different city, and he's done nothing for that city except a couple of playoff wins against the Celtics, which were, in my opinion, very much so legendary in his aim. But then he had two that were equally as washed as the other ones were great. So, you know, there is a team out there that he will find onto. I do not predict, like what happened in his last year in Houston, that's exactly what's happening right now in his second year, or third year rather, in Philadelphia. He's going to be on the move. It's just that Morey is waiting to see if he can extract a little bit more of a higher price, make another team such as the Clippers or maybe someone else. And to be honest, I think the Clippers are the only team that actually has a remote interest in that price tag, because he fits their timeline more than anything. And at this point, they don't got any assets anyway, so they're just going all in because they're desperate. That's exactly what Daryl Morey needs. A team that's desperate, a team that's willing to give their last legs to take a chance on this guy, because nobody else is willing to pay the price, and for good reason.
I read some rumor somewhere that the Knicks were one time interested. Oh my God, please no. Please no. But here's the thing, and why people watching of fans of other teams will probably agree with me. It's almost like setting the team back with Harden. Ball dominant. As good as he was, I know he averaged like 24 and 11 last year. Ball dominant. Getting into his older age a little bit due to NBA years. And the ego is a killer everywhere he goes. That he's like a cancer in the NBA right now. He's the best, most talented NBA cancer maybe ever, along with Kyrie Irving. But he's kind of behaving now.
You know, you brought up the question, Randy, you brought up the question before of the difference between American and international superstars. Let me tell you, and I'm generalizing a little bit here, but I'm pretty sure that Harden probably hangs out with a lot of yes men, guys that give him what he wants to hear, make him feel like he's the top boss hog of the world. The same thing that I feel Kyrie Irving has in his corner. These guys have not created the inner circle that will allow them to thrive as people or players. Whereas, look, and I'm speculating here, but I'm pretty sure if Nikola Jokic has a bad game, his brothers are probably punching him in the gut and not feeding him for a week. That's the difference between the European mindset and the American mindset, which has been brought up, or even the North American mindset. I'm not excluding Canada. I'm just saying the kids that play in the AAU tournaments rather than learning fundamental ball, the kids that have style over substance, that's what's changing. And that's what's changing the level of distribution of world versus USA, in my opinion.
Neel, I'm an American, and that's spot on. It's so obvious, you know, you could see right through it, especially with Harden.
Guys, getting a lot of comments on Twitter Spaces, and John Ball wrote in again saying that he's not the James Harden that was on the Rockets or even the Nets. He's James Harden who gets to the line half the time than he did in his prime. John also wrote, has actually any MVP ever brought less to the locker room than James Harden? It's an interesting take there for sure. Does he even bring much to the locker room at all? Jake Cardinale, who has also appeared on What's Up the Sports podcast. Harden is nothing special anymore. Also, I'm tired of his antics. Him and Morey need to split. And, Mikey, as of course, it'll be interesting to see how things play out in Philadelphia. As much as I'm not a Nick Nurse fan, you got to feel for the guy who's in his first season with the Philadelphia 76ers, has to deal with this incredible mess. But there was some talk of where Joel Embiid fits with this organization. And, I don't know if it was, just stirring the pot from the media, but with everything going on regarding James Harden, the fact that Philadelphia hasn't been able to field a strong team around him. Where do you think James Harden, what do you think, Joel Embiid's future will be with Philly in the years ahead?
I think there's definitely a possibility that he leaves. My New York Knicks do make sense. But I think what could keep him in Philadelphia is the growth of Tyrese Maxey, because he himself was a 24-point per game scorer last year with Harden. So if he's going to take this next step into all-star level territory, he's going to become one of the best young guards in the NBA, scoring guards. That could keep Embiid around if, like you said, they build around Embiid more. I mean, this 76ers team on paper is very top heavy. It's really not all that impressive. Like, I think they need to move James Harden, and I think getting Terrence Mann in there is another young piece along with draft picks that could make Embiid stay. They're going to show him they want to build for the future with Mann, Maxey, and other guys. I think that's the only way. I mean, they need to get a good get for James Harden.
So I just want to throw a hypothetical in there. There is a world in which Daryl Morey could go to Embiid and say, look, eventually we're going to trade Harden. I mean, we're trying to get a little bit more pennies on the dollar for him, but we are going to trade him. And don't worry, because Tobias Maxey is making $35 million a year and he's in an expiring contract. So why don't we package that extremely highly attractive Clippers pick that they're dangling for Harden, where all these guys are going to be retired. They're going to have nothing literally. And they're just going to be bottom feeding for a few years right when that pick comes around. That's going to be highly attractive. Trade that with Tobias Harris. Add a beautiful third piece to Philly. At least it's a selling point that potentially, in my opinion, could interest Embiid.
This is what's up.
That's a good take.
Please, Mikey, go ahead.
No, I'm good. Yeah, I think that's a great take. The floor is Daryl Morey's, and he's going to be, like you said, the guy. His decision is going to be Embiid's future. Whatever he decides and whatever way he goes with whatever trade he decides, it's going to almost dictate Embiid's future.
And his legacy.
Sorry, guys, I keep on talking over you.
It begins and ends with James Harden.
Sorry, Randy.
Jesus. Daryl Morey's legacy begins and ends with James Harden.
Be really interesting to see. This is What's Up the Sports podcast with Tony Antoniou, Neel Katarey, and our special guest, Mikey Domagala of NBA Buzz. Any questions, feel free to post on Twitter Spaces. If you do have a question and would like to come on, we'll definitely try and get you on the show. Just restrict to one question, be greatly appreciated. So Mikey, of course, as you know, this is Raptors country where I am, along with Neel and Tony, and it's been we're far removed from the championship team of the Toronto Raptors back in 2019. Some are predicting some lean years ahead for the Toronto Raptors. Tony actually works at Scotiabank Arena. Tony, are you prepared for a postseason shifts at Scotiabank there?
Sorry, it was my turn to do the mute problem. I certainly hope not, and here's why. Because if there is no postseason work for me, that means they've done what I've asked this club to do for the last year and a half or so, and that's blow the fucker up. And I don't know why Masai's not listening to me. I don't know why Bobby Webster's not listening to me. Maybe it's because I'm not a basketball aficionado. But this was the time. The time was last year, but I think there is an opportunity. There is an opportunity with an OG Anunoby, with a Pascal Siakam, that you can make some moves and bring in some capital to rebuild this club. You have a new head coach, but I have a feeling I'll be working at least one of those wild card games.
Yeah, I guess with the whole dynamic of what makes a superstar, Tony, I think I might have to disagree with you again. And
I'm not
I mean,
calling anybody a superstar. I'm just saying you can get something in return for these players. Don't misunderstand. Siakam, OG, I'm not calling them superstars. I think you can get something in terms of long-term capital to set the course for a rebuild. And, as high a pick as humanly possible in the draft would be nice too, right? That's how a rebuild gets kicked off. I just think it's time for the Raptors to blow it up.
I think.
Listen, I'll take OG Anunoby here in New York. I'd love him, absolutely love him. Couple first-round picks, maybe some guys off the bench, and we got a deal.
I think OG Anunoby replacing RJ Barrett would be a beautiful transition for you guys.
Unfortunately, the Knicks are busy suing us right now. So how's that going?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Well, we've swindled them a number of times in the past. Sorry, Mike, but hey, fun fact,
Andre Bargnani?
Kyle Lowry was 30 minutes away from being a New York Knick.
Yeah.
Well, when was this?
Well, he was actually 30 minutes away from being traded to the Knicks back in 2012 or 13. James Dolan, because Masai Ujiri had swindled him on the Andrea Bargnani deal, pulled out at the last minute, leaving Lowry to create a beautiful legacy in Toronto. So thank you, James Dolan. We love you in Toronto.
Bargnani, man. Oh my God, what a bust here in New York. Disgusting.
Yeah, no, he was bad news. It's unfortunate that he didn't work on his
some good years. Had some good years in Toronto that I remember, right?
No,
good enough.
He's not someone we like to talk about here.
There was so much potential with Bargnani. Honestly, he just refused to go down low. And it'd be interesting, honestly, would he evolve more in today's game? I mean, big men really didn't shoot from the outside.
Yeah, he would be a decent player in today's game, in my opinion. You're allowed to be soft in today's game, and he would fit right that mold.
Probably average like 18 and 7. Now.
If you want to see his legacy in Toronto, Mikey, just Google his Primo pasta sauce commercial.
Okay.
All right. Primo pasta and sauce commercial.
I'm in a basketball fantasy league, and literally my profile pic has been him scooping pasta into his mouth for the last 5 years.
Primo pasta and sauce.
I agree with you guys about Toronto blowing it up, especially in this climate of the Eastern Conference. I mean, they're not getting past Milwaukee. They're not getting past Boston. My Knicks are better than them. Even though Toronto always puts up a fight and beats my Knicks last year, the year before. But I think you bounce everybody except Scotty and maybe hang on to Grady Dick. Maybe this era of three-point shooting will help him evolve into a good scorer. And yeah, you parlay everything into picks and young players.
Absolutely.
I think where my problem is, guys, is that you trade away the Pascals and the OGs for capital. I mean, the reality is that capital doesn't really get you anywhere. It is not a guarantee, excuse me. And we do see the potential in a Siakam. Like, obviously, he was key for the Raptors in the championship in 2019. OG wasn't on the active roster during that playoff run, but we know what kind of potential he has. You blow it up, and let's say that Scotty Barnes turns into a consistent all-star. Is he really going to want to stay in Toronto? And I think what the problem is that, especially since winning the championship, is that the Raptors did not have a legitimate center after Marc Gasol. Now, obviously, Father Time caught up to Marc Gasol very quickly after winning the championship with the Toronto Raptors. They do have Jakob Poeltl now. Jakob Poeltl, is a vast improvement than what they've had in the past 2 seasons. Mm-hmm. But Mikey, do you see where I'm going at here? Because there's obviously a possibility of improving your roster when you do trade for a Siakam and Anunoby, if you want to throw in Gary Trent Jr. But it's going to be a long time coming. And this could be Sacramento 2.0, where it's 14 years when they make the playoffs. And respectfully, like the Knicks have taken a long time to get where they are potentially.
The last few mellow years into the years after that were so bad. The city, nobody cared about the Knicks then. I don't think a Raptors drought would be as bad as Sacramento. I mean, that's a lot of years. And when you have Scotty Barnes, you could put pieces around him to at least make the play-in, maybe win a play-in to get an 8th seed. Yeah, you made a good point about it. Okay, like they might be losing if they make trades, or if they totally gut, they'll still be losing with young players. So it's not looking too good for Scotty Barnes' winning ways in Toronto in the near future, but it's a risk you have to take, because do you want to be a 6th and 7th seed or even 8, 9, 10 seed who keeps getting bounced and barely sniffing the playoffs? Or do you want to gamble and wait for the next Victor Wembanyama to come around? It's like they're growing off trees overseas now. Maybe not his type, but the talent. And yeah, I think it's worth the risk.
Just to jump off your point there, Mikey, the talent pool of the NBA is growing year by year. That's the parity of the NBA. It's no longer this top-heavy league. We got a league that's growing in parity, much like the NFL has already achieved and is the pinnacle of parity in sports. Because every year, it's a Joker's wild who's going to win this division or that division. But I think what you got to look at with the Raptors is that we have a team with 2 different timelines. We got the Pascal timeline and we got the Scotty timeline, and you really got to pick one. And in my opinion, I agree with Mike and Tony, you got to go with the Scotty timeline, because the thought of paying Pascal Siakam $200 million, frankly, as much as I love the guy and think that his jersey should be retired in Toronto, is absolutely nauseating. It's much more attractive. It's much more attractive to, like Mikey said and Tony said, go bankrupt, start over with Scotty, have a lot of draft capital. Because I look at 2 teams in particular that did this beautifully and are coming up so hard right now, and that's the Utah Jazz and that's the OKC Thunder. They both did this. They still got a ton of assets, and they got better teams than the Raptors already without spending money. These guys, Utah, were so desperate to throw money away that they traded John Collins. They gave a bag of peanuts for John Collins, $25 million a year contract, because they literally had to spend money.
Rudy Gobert trade.
Those 2 teams are going to be championship contenders for the better part of this decade, in my opinion.
And to, put a leg off that, the Rudy Gobert trade. I mean, okay, like Gobert maybe isn't that guy, and they get Walker Kessler the next year to fill his place, and he's the guy now. Mm-hmm. And draft capital from that. So not that I guess they swindled them a little bit, but there's an ability to swindle teams and really make a quick flip like OKC. OKC, that's a 2-3 year rebuild at max.
Beautiful.
So Toronto with Scotty, they already got the piece. I think they can make it work.
It would be interesting to see if Scotty Barnes could reach that level, because of course we did see something very special in his rookie year. That people say that he did take a step back. Guys, a couple of comments here. Where do we begin here? With regards to James Harden, John Ball had written, honestly, shouldn't Chicago go for Harden? Yeah, with DeRozan, Vucevic, and Levine, they aren't getting any younger. Jake Cardinelli had replied. Now, Jake is a big New York Knicks fan. Do not come to the Knicks. We are good. Thanks anyway. And with regards back to John Ball, you can't have Barnes as a starting point guard, and you cannot have Dennis Schroeder as the guy either. So some interesting days ahead in Toronto. I guess the majority has spoken that Siakam and Anunoby should hit the high road. But, Mikey, I would be remiss if we didn't talk about your New York Knicks very quickly. Of course, they did have a very impressive year. They did lose out to the Miami Heat in the conference semifinals. Obi Toppin is no longer a New York Knick. With regards to your beloved New York Knicks, what do you see the future has for them this season?
I think a similar finish as last year in the regular season. And I think they win that playoff series now against Miami because solely Dante DiVincenzo. I think that was one of the most underrated pickups of the offseason. No bias here, no anything like that, but he was proven to be a good two-way guy in Milwaukee. Last year with the Warriors, he's won them games just based off his 3-and-D type style, three-point shooting and defending. And I think DiVincenzo and Josh Hart off the bench are two great pieces that could single-handedly win them 5 more games next year because of the defensive prowess when it comes down to crunch time and them being on the floor. Quentin Grimes, the starter, is also a good defender. It was Jalen Brunson against the Miami Heat last postseason, and that's really what it felt like. So we almost made the comeback. We didn't get it done, and I'm excited for this upcoming year with Dante.
What are your thoughts on Tom Thibodeau, the coach? I mean, he does have that old school mentality, it looks like. And I thought that, coaching with an iron fist was that you're not really able to do that. I mean, is that in fact the case, number one? And number two, I mean, is he the right guy to lead that Knicks team?
Yes and no. I think every Knicks fan's mind changes by the day, by the game. Sometimes his lineups are shaky. He falls in love with somebody and doesn't let go of that love for them. It's like, all right, why is this guy playing 25 minutes tonight? Like, look who's on the bench right now. He has his favorites, and it hurts him. It definitely hurts him. I didn't like how he handled the Obi Toppin situation. I thought Obi would start getting hot and he'd yank him right out to throw in Julius Randle. He wouldn't ride the hot hand. Julius is definitely one of his favorites. I know he's an all-star, but there's nights Julius shoots 6 of 20 and he's still calling the plays to Julius every play. It's frustrating. He is a defensive-minded coach, which we saw probably won them that series against Cleveland. I mean, they buckled down and really locked in, and that was the determining factor for that series. So this is what I mean, Randy. It's like some things are good, some things are bad. Some days it's good, some days are bad. It's hard to tell. It's really hard to tell. In a non-defensive playing league, having a defensive coach, it's like, wow, this is uncharted territory.
And if I may just make a quick point about Obi Toppin, I did not like that at all, how Thibodeau handled him, because you look at Toppin, this guy was a top 10 pick. He's a fast, athletic player, can shoot threes, can dunk with the best of them. He went to a perfect team that's going to take advantage of his skill set, playing with a guy like Tyrese Halliburton. You're going to see this guy take a major leap on a team that is ascending. And to be honest, the Knicks made a double dumb move because they traded him to a team that they're directly going to be seed competing for.
And how about this, Neel? You said a bag of peanuts, maybe like a bag of like crumbs they gave up to Obi Toppin. Nothing. But top 10 pick 4 years ago, 3 years ago, and they trade 2 second-round picks for him. Are you kidding me? Unbelievable.
It's crazy.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see, especially with Tyrese Halliburton. Of course, he had a real renaissance year, and is he going to excel that much more with Obi Toppin next to him? Guys, do want to close things off with a little rapid fire segment now. Mikey has always been a great sport in the past. I would ask him a Canadian sports related question, and Mikey always was gracious in that. Usually, Mikey, on What's Up the Sports podcast, we end things off with a rapid fire segment called Big Deal, No Big Deal. So in this sense, I'm going to ask you, the three of you, whether the following is going to be a big deal or if it's downright going to be a flop. And, Tony, as we were going on and on about Victor Wembanyama, it wasn't that long ago when the basketball world was talking about Zion Williamson, and he appears to be back. He appears to be healthy, we believe. He hasn't really had much of a start to his NBA career. Do you think Zion Williamson is going to be a big deal this NBA season, or not so much a big deal?
There is zero evidence to support that guy taking off, right? And it's got to do with his body. You can't trust it. Perhaps Dr. Neel can diagnose what's going on with him. You can't trust it. He can't stay healthy. So how can I say he's going to take off? There is zero evidence to support that he'll be able to play, 50 games? Can he play 50? I don't know.
I don't know off the top of my head.
I think he can. But his mind has to be there. His mentality has not been there the first few years of his career. I think he's been an immature player. He hasn't realized that he's a pro. He's sort of been doing this and that, and he hasn't been looking like a professional. If he creates a professional mindset, I'm confident that he can string together, although I don't think he'll have a long career, because eventually he's going to get hit with that big boy injury bug again. But I think he can have a very productive superstar level core 5 or 6 years in the NBA.
Yeah, he's had quite an off season. I believe there was a stripper involved and what have you. So
a number of things. And so
And I wasn't even thinking about that. I'm just looking at the guy's health. I mean, do you think his mindset is what it is because he's constantly hurt, and it's just like he's kind of got that mentality of like, what am I doing here? Like, what, I can't catch a break unless it's my knee or my leg.
Well, to the point, what you guys were saying before was, when certain players are surrounded by yes men, and then they get a wrench thrown at them. And as far as I know, Mikey, maybe you might know better than me, but Zion really didn't have that kind of injury trouble when he was at Duke and when he was in high school. Everybody was calling him the next best thing to come out of the future of the NBA. And it just, I don't know if it's maturity and so on, but maybe it's just simply confidence with Zion. I mean, he only played the most he's played in his 3 seasons, I suppose, was just over 60 games. He of course didn't play the entire 21-22 season. So maybe it's just simply in between his ears.
I think you made a great point. Sorry, Mikey, go ahead.
No, Neel, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that's a fantastic point, Randy. I completely agree. His confidence has been lacking. And for a guy that's actually in the games that he's played incredibly well, I still think he's got at least 2 levels left to go before you really see the true version of Zion. And I think his confidence, like you said, is a huge part of that.
And it might be he's such a freak of nature with his athleticism that when he loves that Louisiana food and all the cooking down there and he gains weight, it's almost like his body and the weight holds his explosiveness back. It's almost like when he jumps, it's probably so much more painful with all that weight negating the freakish athleticism that it just causes problems in his joints or whatever it may be.
Well, not to toot my own horn, guys, but I don't know if you knew that I was in New Orleans this past weekend. I just got back yesterday, and I got to tell you, that food is phenomenal. The gumbo, the catfish. Like, I don't know if you guys ever heard of po' boys, but yeah, it was just out of this world. And yeah, if there's a place with a bad uh like vices, especially with regards to food, and I guess with partying as well, New Orleans is not really the best place for Zion to be. But anyway, I digress. Very quickly, and actually, we're talking about Zion Williamson. Of course, number 2 in that draft was Ja Morant. And I didn't prepare you guys to talk about Ja Morant. Of course, he has had a lot of controversy around him with regards to improper use of a gun, and his stock has appears to have fallen considerably. I mean, but well, if you want to throw in between Ja and Zion Williamson, I don't know if it's an unfair comparison, but do you think Ja Morant, guys, can bring it back to what he had before he got into all this trouble?
I think yes. I mean, you have the public apologies, you have all this stuff. John knew what he was doing. I think it affected him, and it'll make him not be as, mistakeful off the court, but I don't think that's going to really affect him mentally. I think he's still, like a junkyard dog kind of kid, and he'll just put this all in the past and maybe focus more on basketball, which is kind of scary knowing how good he is. Yeah, I think maybe a little remorse to that for him, but he'll right after these 25 games, I think he'll be locked in.
Randy, you brought up the point about confidence, and while I would never say that Ja Morant lacks confidence on the court, because we know he's a dog, he's a killer on the court, he's got game with the best of them, but his antics have showed me that he lacks confidence as a man in the wilderness of life. And whatever that had to do, he's clearly got yes men around him, and he hasn't learned yet how to be a man with a mind of his own, with decisions of his own, and to control his inner circle rather than vice versa. I think it's proven that he has not allowed himself to become that version of himself as a man. And once he does, this guy is going to be an MVP candidate every year that he stays healthy.
Yeah, he's trying to be something he's not off the court, and I agree. He'll figure it out, and I think he'll settle down from this because he's capable of doing a lot of things, a lot of great things on and off the court as a human being and as a player. And he probably got stuck in a rut for a couple of years there, overwhelming amount of fame. And I don't think his family helped him enough through this. And I think everybody needs to have a sit down as a family and say, okay, this is the direction we need to take. We're not about that life. Let's be professional. But I do believe there's a chance for Ja Morant to turn it around. Based on what I've read about his family history, his upbringing, there is a chance.
And when he was on point, especially during that playoff run with the Memphis Grizzlies, I mean, Ja Morant had a very bright spotlight on him, and it'd be exciting to see if he was able to get it back. And the same could also potentially be said for Kyrie Irving. He, of course, is now a member of the Dallas Mavericks, and when you talk about Damian Lillard going to a new team with an established star. Of course, Kyrie Irving has had a history with playing with LeBron James, Kevin Durant, throw in James Harden. Now he's teamed up with Luka. Neel, Kyrie Irving has obviously fallen from grace, and in the short window that he had with the Dallas Mavericks, he was quite effective. Do you think that Kyrie Irving could not only rejuvenate his career, but do you think that he can bring Dallas back to a championship level?
This is a layered question, because while I do think that things have lined up for Kyrie to potentially rejuvenate his career, because I think he's passed a lot of the COVID drama, the hot take, flat earth, other dramas that he's sort of perpetuated through society. The anti-Semitism, the anti-Semite video that he didn't realize he posted on Twitter. So many scandals showing this guy's hubris or immaturity have been out there. But the thing that got lost in the shuffle is that he's a dirty baller. He can ball on the offensive end. The problem is that I just thought right from the beginning of that trade that Dallas is probably the worst place that he could have gone to, because Luka Doncic is probably the worst co-star that he could possibly have. They both thrive on usage, just like Damian Lillard, and without usage, they're not as effective. They stand around. They're not strong defenders. They don't play a team orchestrated level of basketball without their usage, even though you could say that Kyrie has done it with LeBron James, that he has done it to a degree with Kevin Durant. I just think that the Mavericks as a team are not going to be good, and that is going to lead to Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, or both becoming disgruntled at some point, even though the table is set for both of them to potentially have monstrous individual seasons if you take out team success as a factor.
Mikey, what do you think? Neel doesn't think that Dallas has the correct 1-2 punch. What are your thoughts?
I mean, he's a doctor for a reason. He's intelligent in medical, and he's intelligent in basketball. But no, I agree. I mean, look at the receipts. They missed the playoffs. Are you kidding me? Kyrie Irving comes in at the trade deadline, and they miss the playoffs. Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic, two of the best guards in the NBA, can't even put together a playoff contending team. Nobody's thinking about Dallas. Nobody. They're fun to watch because of those two, but out west, if they make it deep, they're getting beat by a solid team that has a great bench that will outdo them, pass the ball around, swing, drive right past Luka and Kyrie and score. So I think it's a lot of fun. I don't think they're going to win anything together, and they can get disgruntled. I could see them losing 3-4 games in a row, and something leaks out to the media, and I post it, and that's where the ball gets rolling. That's where the snowball starts. And I think Kyrie cleaned up his act, like Neel was saying, but when push comes to shove and things aren't working how they want it to work, there'll be some comments flying around.
And you do have to wonder if things go awry, how long will it be until we see Kyrie Irving go back to the issues and the drama and the nonsense that we've seen in the past. Mikey, you were saying that no one's thinking about Dallas, and love to get your comments on the in-season tournament that will be taking place for the first time in the NBA. Of course, Tony is a big soccer fan, and I definitely have an appreciation for the beautiful game. And of course, soccer is all too common with tournaments within a regular season. You think of Champions League, Europa, and everything that goes with it. And to me, I'm very intrigued about the in-season tournament. Of course, it doesn't compete with the playoffs and getting to the championship. But if for some reason a low successful team in the regular season by some chance has a successful in-season tournament, I mean, I think it's a great idea. Now, if it's going to develop into something as elaborate as, say, a Champions League, that remains to be seen. But, Mikey, bringing it back to whether it's a big deal or no big deal, what are your thoughts on the in-season tournament?
I know how fans are. I know how American basketball fans are. Me, myself, I'm not intrigued one bit. I saw Chris Paul commented and said, "Oh, the Warriors are going to win the in-season tournament." All right, well, doesn't really make him a champion. So, it's, you know what I mean? There's an asterisk to that. If people are saying the Lakers 2020 championship season wasn't a real championship season, what are they going to say about the in-season tournament win? I think it'll give it'll give clout if you win it. It'll make a team like, say, Victor Wembanyama is Superman and puts the Spurs on his back, and that's the storyline that they win the in-season tournament. That's clout, and that's awesome. Great for viewership, great for all that, but I don't think it's going to go anywhere. Maybe down the line of the tradition, it could be more. I think the guys will want to play in it. There's cash incentives for teams who win it. Um, I'm not excited for it, to be honest with you.
Tony, what do you think? I for somebody who does follow soccer and have done so your entire life, I suppose that there is a different appetite with Europa League versus Champions League and so on. A Champions League within MLS in North America doesn't really have the same cachet unless maybe when Toronto FC made the Champions League final a number of years ago. Was it 2018, I suppose? There was definitely some hype, but you could say, I mean, obviously NBA club teams are not playing club teams in Europe, but to some degree that there's some similarities with this in-season tournament.
I don't see any similarities with it. I don't see any similarities with it. I'm sorry. The Champions League is a different animal. You're talking about the powers of Europe facing each other in just, stimulating football played by some of the best players on the planet. And it means something to them. I don't know how much it means to these players. Like if money is the factor, like Mikey says, then is it going to be that fun to watch? I'm with Mikey. I'm not looking forward to it. But you never know. This thing, you could be right there, slap dab in the middle, watching it, and all of a sudden it says, "Holy shit!" It's getting exciting here. So it has that possibility too. But right now, as I sit here, I'm pretty sure I won't watch much of it. I mean, I'll check the score, see how it goes, but I can't see myself getting into it at all.
I think the NBA isn't hyping it enough because, like, nobody's really talking about it. It starts on like November 5th. The season starts on like the 24th. So, okay, we're going into the start of the season. Oh, and there's the in-season tournament starting. Oh, okay. That's cool. It's just another game, another night of games. You know what I mean? So they need to almost market it better to show that it matters. And I don't think they have.
For me, I'm going to reserve judgment on it because I was not a fan of the idea of the play-in tournament, and now I'm its biggest supporter. After especially the play-in tournament that we saw last year with Miami, honing their finals run vibe, their sort of metal, their sort of grit in that place. I thought that the play-in for them was actually a significant piece to help them achieve that run, and it was exciting. All the games pretty much were close and exciting. But I was not a fan, and so I am going to reserve judgment on the play-in tournament. But I think that the NBA's objective here, mainly beyond dollars and cents, is it's all dollars and cents. Let's be real, but is to bring a higher level of awareness to some of the middling teams. Like you're going to see, like the Orlando Magic against the Minnesota Timberwolves going at it for the play-in championship, and all the top echelon teams are probably going to be snickering on the side. But it's going to bring a little bit of life to maybe some of these less heralded teams that never really make it out the top.
Well, now I believe this was created in the hopes of players not taking games off, load management. You could say that it started with Kawhi here in Toronto. Mikey, forgive me, I can't remember if the NBA actually went with being more strict with games off, that if you take one game off, you have to take off, you have to be off for multiple games. I don't know if that's official yet. I mean, do you think that this will prevent load management and star players, playing more throughout the regular season, be it in season tournament, whatever you want to summarize it as?
I mean, hypothetically, it should, especially if your team is going to make it into the last seeding and you're contending for the in-season tournament championship, I guess is going to be called. So it's more exciting that way. So I guess players would look to want to compete and play in it, but you can't really put anything past these guys. Like, they'd probably still load manage for it, I would think, because I think what I'm saying with the clout for good teams, and like Neel just said, like, these great teams might snicker at it and be like, oh, yeah, the in-season tournament. Okay, no. Business really starts in April, May, and June. So that's going to be their focus. It depends. It really depends. I'm not sure.
Well, business may start April, May, and June, but really and truly, the regular season will be starting in just under a week. Mikey, I'd hate to end things without asking you where people can find your incredible content. For those listening in, please tell them where they could find NBA Buzz.
Yeah, NBA Buzz could be found on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You mentioned a little earlier, Snapchat, TikTok, YouTube, all different avenues, all basketball content delivered from me on every platform. Be sure to follow Inside Buzz. You see the banner behind me. I got the sweatshirt on. NBA interviews, personnel interviews, and yeah, that's it. So I appreciate all the support, Randy, having me on. And fellas, nice to meet you guys. And it's nice to hear you guys follow me. So I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
I don't, but I'm about to once I get off this call.
Oh, all right. There you go. There you go.
Yeah, I love your content. Your machine.
You have a new
when it comes
fan.
to throwing it down, and I get some of the more entertaining headlines of the day from your page for sure.
Thank you very much.
All the best.
And Tony, Neel, thank you so much once again. We'll definitely talk about the world of sports maybe in a couple. Of course, we're in the midst of the league championship series in Major League Baseball. What's going to happen with the Leafs? Well, we'll definitely organize something soon, guys.
Okay. Anytime.
Awesome. Thanks, Randy.
No, my pleasure.
guys.
For Tony Antoniou, Neel Katarey, and Mikey Domagala, I am Randy Courret. This is What's Up to Sports Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. Hope you are doing well and keeping safe. We will talk to you next time.